Welcome back to the Futbal Biz podcast. As always, I'm Graysen Mortimer. He is Hunter Boyven, and we have a lot to talk about today. We're planning on covering Chelsea because they are a bit of a mess. We're planning on talking about U.S. soccer and just some other games that happened across the week. So to kick right off, we're going to go into some transfer news. Daley Blind has signed for Bayern Munich. Now, how do you feel about that one?
I see it's only till the end of the season, so as of right now, I think it's a good move. We lost Lucas Hernandez in the World Cup to what I think was an ACL injury, so we'll need a defender in the back. I know Blinn can play left fullback, he can play center back, so if that's where they plan on keeping him, then I think this is a pretty good signing, especially since it's not really long term.
Yeah, that's fair. And another thing that did happen for Bayern was that, and I really feel bad if I mispronounced this name, but Nusair Mazraoui, the Moroccan left back from the World Cup, also plays for Bayern, and he actually just contracted COVID. And similarly to Alphonso Davies, has a heart condition as a result. So he'll be out for a little bit as well. And he is also a left back, so it kind of makes sense to sign Daley Blind. Especially with the fact that Lucas Hernandez is out for the whole year, and then we don't know how long Mazzarowi's going to be out. So I think it's understandable.
Yeah, Bayern usually plays him at right back, Mazraoui, so I think they'll probably use Pavard back on the right, like they usually do if Mazraoui is not there. Or Josip Stanisic, he's pretty good there too. But I think Daley Blind will do good wherever he plays in the back, as long as it's not in the midfield. Again, we have way too many of those. So again, now with the transfer of Conrad Leimer from a couple months ago, I think defender you're just gonna have to keep him there, and then it's a good move.
Yeah, I would say so for sure. And yeah, I think I mean, with other than that one, but Benoit Badiashile has been confirmed to sign for Chelsea. We'll talk a little bit more about them later, but I think overall that's going to be a good transfer. It does youthen up their defense a little bit. It was huge. I think it was like a 7-year contract. So he's going to be there for a long time. I would say overall good business for Chelsea.
Yeah, I obviously will have a lot more to say about Chelsea later on. I think as far as young goes, that's a good signing for the future. I think they're doing a little bit too much, but now that we'll talk about later, their injuries, I think maybe it's not such a bad move. Maybe right now it's good, but I think when you think about it, what happens when everyone comes back? So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I saw that you wanted to talk about was the Ronaldo Newcastle clause. So I'll let you go into that.
Yeah, so there's been rumors basically that because Newcastle is owned by the same Saudi company that owns Al Nassr, there's a clause in Ronaldo's contract that if Newcastle make it to the UCL next season, then he is able to go out on loan to Newcastle in the next season. So if that's true, I think that is the smartest thing I've ever heard. Whereas previously, I thought this is the dumbest move I've ever seen. If that's true, then that changes everything.
Yeah, I did see that Eddie Howe said no to it. So I don't know what entirely that's going to entail. Um, because I mean Newcastle's coach just flat out and said no. But that being said, the other thing with Newcastle is they do have a plethora of center forwards. Um, Obviously, I would say Ronaldo's better than both Callum Wilson and Chris Wood, but they do also have Alexander Isaac, who has been out with a lengthy injury. But with that, Ronaldo's obviously still going to be a great move if they are able to get him, even if it's just like for his experience. But that being said, Man U has fared off better without him. They have won 4 in a row, so hard to say. Hard to say what the impact there would be, but I would say as of right now, that's probably a future discussion. I think Newcastle is going to make the Champions League, but I do think that that Ronaldo is right now a very temporary planned. I don't think that he would be anything that long term for them. I don't think that Newcastle would completely go for it. I think they're doing just fine as they are right now.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting because even though, yeah, they are doing all right on their own, it is definitely an interesting clause if it happened to be true because, everyone's saying Ronaldo's finished now and no more Champions League for him. If it's true, then I think that's incredibly smart on his part.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he said he's done with Europe, so I guess time will tell with that one. Now moving into one of our big stories. So uh, I don't know how many people follow the U.S. men's national team, but their coach Greg Berhalter is in a bit of a conundrum right now, because it was reported that there was an incident in the 1990s that involved potential assault on his current wife. And Berhalter, to be fair, to Berhalter's credit, he did come out and explain the situation to the best of what he felt was necessary, which was basically they were at a bar in college in 1991, I believe, got into a fight, like a verbal altercation, and then they went outside and he said that he kicked her, which, not great, but he owned up to it and said that it was handled. And since then, they've gone on to get married and have 4 kids. So I think that it's something that they were able to put behind them. Even though it isn't a great situation, they were able to put it behind them and kind of just go forward. I think the bigger picture here isn't so much Berhalter, but the Reina family. The Reina family has been more so the center of this story, even more so than Berhalter. Now, basically, what happened with this was uh, Berhalter said that Gio Reyna wouldn't be getting a great part in the World Cup, and I think that Claudio and Danielle Reina took this a little too seriously and have since reported the incident in the 90s to the U.S. Soccer Federation. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
We'll go back to Berhalter himself and his situation. I think this was completely unnecessary. This is something that happened, you know, between the two of them many years ago, and obviously, like we saw, they hashed it out. They're married and have been for decades. So they were able to, amongst themselves, aka the party involved, fix it as to the best of their abilities. And as far as public knowledge goes, it looks like that's worked out pretty well, considering they have children and they're still together. Um, Beyond that, I do remember when Gio Reyna came out like a little bit less than a month ago after their exit of the World Cup, saying he was promised this and that, but then ended up not playing as much as he was supposed to. All this stuff, and whether that's true or not, I don't think blackmail should really come into this. I think that's definitely unnecessary. I'm not going to blame Gio Reyna. I don't think this has anything to do with him. I think this is kind of just salty parents. Um, but he's an adult. He can figure it out on his own. I know he's a young adult, but this is not really the behavior you would expect from national team legends. So I'm not really sure what the point of this was.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the fact that in the maybe it's something for Claudio in the past because he was national teammates with Berhalter. And he also the thing with Claudio is he also did praise the U.S. hire of Berhalter. I guess he felt that maybe because they were friends that he felt that Gio was in the best potential setup for the national team. And also, an important detail is the fact that Berhalter's wife and Reina's wife were college roommates. So I mean, there is a firsthand account to what may have happened then, um, with that because they were teammates on the soccer team there. But I think that yeah, it is just a case of parents overstepping their boundaries. And I think unfortunately for Gio, he is a very promising player. In fact, I would say up there with Musa, he's probably the biggest prospect right now for the United States. And the fact that he's going to have this baggage on him for even potentially the rest of his career at the most, and then at the least, it's gonna linger for at least a year or two, I would say. Um, until this whole thing blows over, and if the U.S. Soccer Federation does find anything uh, against him. So it's a situation that I think was unnecessary. It's one that I think that hopefully the U.S. Responds to and doesn't find anything extra. I don't think they will. I think that Berhalter is very much in the right here, even though obviously he did something in the '90s that he would probably regret now. But um, I mean, it just seems unnecessary to me.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to this is that I don't really like him as the U.S. coach, but I don't think this alone should affect his career there. I think he should be gone for other reasons, mainly being I don't think he's very fit for the job. But beyond that, I don't think this should affect his career at all, and I think it's pretty unfair to him and his family.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that he has. I don't think he's the right coach either. I don't really know who is, to be honest, for the United States. It's really tough. It's a tough job to take. Um, the only international gig I would say is potentially tougher is England, because there is, even though the U.S. base is, I would say, a lot smaller than England's. Um, it's a tough position to take because you're leading, a great group of promising talent. And even look at a guy like John Herdman for Canada. He fits that team perfectly. And Berhalter just doesn't have that same level of achievement for the players that they have given the squad. So yeah, I think that he's not the right option for the U.S. But if they let him go because of this, I think that's a little bit a little bit soft. But I guess we'll see. Uh, I think Berhalter's going to be retained. I think they are going to re-sign him. Obviously, right now he's not going to be in charge of the January camp for the U.S., but time will tell if he is viewed as the long term solution, and if the U.S. Soccer Federation does end up backing him.
Nothing more to add to that. Okay.
Yeah, fair enough. But I would say as my final thoughts on this, um, I think Claudio Reyna's comments publicly should be taken into consideration, and I think that uh, it wouldn't be unreasonable for Austin FC to fire him in his current role at the club. I think he took it too far, and frankly doesn't deserve the gig that he's given. Eli Lesser on This Week in MLS actually also commented on that and said that, yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So uh, hoping for some explanation there from Claudio. Um, and I get defending your son, but in the end of the day, football's a tough game, and you don't always get what you want in the sport. So it's tough luck, but uh, sometimes you just got to suck it up. And I guess your kid, but that's the beautiful game. You went through it yourself. You should know that, Claudio. So hard to say here. But moving on to our other big story, we're going to talk a lot about Chelsea today. Um, Chelsea is having some trouble. they they are a team that is absolutely going through it. They've spent the money, but they haven't been getting the results. Their most recent game was played yesterday. That was against Manchester City. Frankly, City had a lackluster performance, but still managed to win the game. They really weren't generating anything offensively. The second half, they played a lot better, but um, Chelsea did not look in this game whatsoever, and frankly, were outclassed in their own stadium. They are now 10 points from the top four and also 10 points from the relegation zone, sitting in 10th place. So it's really not what Chelsea fans were hoping for, and it's a situation that I think is beyond even the manager at this point. What's your take on Chelsea?
Um, I think the solution in their eyes is just spend some more money. Clearly, I think that's what they're going to continue to do. Double-digit injuries on the season, many being first-team starters. That's going to hurt anyone. That's really rough. So I can't discredit them too much. If you're losing all your starters, then you're going to struggle. I did think that in the first half of the game, they actually looked all right. if I'm being honest. Obviously, they didn't generate a goal or any, clear shots, but they were giving it to City for at least the first half. But I think we saw in the second half, who really was the better team, and I can't argue with the result. City is just a better team, with or without the injuries. Personally, um, I said it last episode. I think Chelsea's season is done. I don't think they'll get relegated, not even close. I don't think that's a reality for anyone. But I don't see them making even the Europa League, maybe the Conference League. But beyond that, for a club this big, your season's done. There's nothing really to look forward to besides the Conference League.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very realistic expectation for them at this point is reaching the Conference League now. They've they've spent money both with Abramovich and now with Todd Bowley, with obviously Buddy Ashile and a couple other youngsters being the most recent transfers, but they are still trying to flex their wallet. They tried to sign Enzo Fernandez from Benfica, and they're trying to take away Mudryk from Arsenal, which he himself has said he prefers Arsenal. So I think he, in the end of the day, is going to go there. But um, they've been flexing their wallet, but they haven't been getting the results that have been necessary, especially since Bowley's takeover. But I think the big mistake that Chelsea made this season was firing Thomas Tuchel. He had them in, I think, third or fourth when they decided to let him go, and I just don't really understand what that decision entailed. Like, this guy won you the Champions League. He brought you far in the FA Cup. He brought you far in the league. He almost won it for you. Um, I think they got third behind two very good teams in Man City and Liverpool. I don't really understand what the deal was with firing Tuchel. I really don't understand it. And if we had this segment of Idiot of the Week back in the day, I would have given it to Todd Bowley because you fired a Champions League winning coach for Graham Potter. I, maybe I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I do have some friends that are Chelsea fans, and I think they feel the same way. But it's not a good situation.
Yeah, no. Again, one of my friends just went to London and he saw them play a couple of games ago. That was the one that they actually won. So good for him for picking the right one. Um, he's definitely upset about this, and I don't think he likes Todd Bowley either. I don't think anyone does. I don't think he knows at all what's going on. Again, this is the case of an American tycoon taking over a sport that he's not familiar with. Uh, he knows baseball. He owns the Dodgers, but this is not the same. And I know they spend crazy amounts of money out there, and they may do their own thing, but it's not the same. And I don't think taking those ideas to a completely different world is going to get you the result you want. So it's honestly possible that we may see him not being the owner for that long, as long as Abramovich was. Definitely not, in my opinion. I don't think that's in jeopardy right now, but I could see in the near future him selling this fairly soon.
Yeah, I think in the immediate future, I think Chelsea fans are going to call for Potter to get the sack over Bowley. Um, I will give Bowley credit here. He has been at a lot of Chelsea's games. He has been involved, which is what Abramovich was, and I think Bowley understands that. I do think that he knows that Abramovich was one of the better owners in the Premier League. Now, obviously, he was harsh with managers, and I think Bowley's so far followed that up pretty extensively with getting rid of Tuchel, um, who also I think maybe he could have coached Club Bruges instead of Scott Parker, but that's anyway. That was last week's episode. But I think Bowley has been involved with the team, and he clearly cares about Chelsea, which I think is right now what Chelsea fans can ask for. Um, but I think that the issue is that he got rid of the coach at the wrong time. Now, I think if Tuchel ended up getting fifth this year at the end of the season, okay, maybe you have some higher expectations. Maybe it's a time to make a change. It's the fact that he did it uh, so early on in the season. I don't even think we were 10 games in, and Bowley already axed the guy in charge. Um, and I think maybe it's the fact that he wanted a more attacking style of football. It's maybe that's what it was. I don't really understand the decision. But Graham Potter has been nothing short of a dumpster fire so far for Chelsea.
Yeah, they also hired him immediately, which to me makes it sound like they had him in mind already. I don't know why this was the guy that you had in mind. Uh, I don't know. It was definitely a dumb move to get rid of Tuchel. Um, I think they're paying for it now. I think the result of the firing is very clear now. Of course, the injuries come into play, but that can only do so much because you still have a good amount of starters. You got your captain. Um, I think this is just a performance I'd expect from a coach that I don't think is that great.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously the losses of Sterling and Pulisic are gonna hurt their attacking core because they replaced them with Aubameyang and I believe it was Chukwuemeka. Um, eh, Now Chukwuemeka, to be fair, he actually did play pretty well. He had Chelsea's best chance of the game, rifling it off the post. So I think the one takeaway from the Chelsea game, and maybe for the rest of their season, is their youngsters did play pretty well. Um, I just talked about Chukwuemeka, and he played really well. Lewis Hall played pretty well. I believe he slotted in for left back after Cucurella came off, and Omari Hutchinson was also involved. So, and even a guy like Conor Gallagher, who we definitely know about him, he generated some kind of spark. But unfortunately, those guys just it wasn't enough from them, and Chelsea still did lose the match. Um, the one thing that they haven't suffered a ton of injuries on defense. Reece James as the only big one that I can think of. Um, they still have the likes of Koulibaly, Thiago Silva, Azpilicueta, Cucurella, among others. So I think their defensive core is okay, but everywhere else on the pitch is having some issues for them. Um, and then Kepa let in one of the easiest goals I think of the season. So I don't know. Maybe they'll want to switch back to Mendy after that one.
I think that's all I have to say on that point for Chelsea. It's a wrap.
Yeah, I think their season is a wrap. Unfortunately, maybe they'll be able to turn it around under Potter, but uh, I think we could very well see three managers in one season for the Blues. I think they should go out and sign someone like a Maurizio Pochettino. I think that he would be a great option for this team. Now, obviously, Pochettino's allergic to winning trophies, but I think if you give him the right squad, like a PSG, for example, he can actually get over that hurdle of winning stuff. And I think that, yeah, you got to go out and sign someone like him because if you don't, then your team's just not going to see any forward progress. Um, and yeah, right now they're one of the weaker teams in London. West Ham and Crystal Palace, I think, could give them a run for their money with how they've been playing recently. Obviously, West Ham hasn't been great. Crystal Palace just lost 4-0 to Tottenham, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. As of right now, London is very much red, and I think it'll be that way for the rest of the season.
And I think that's a good segue into uh, the more important results from the Prem. So we could start with
Yes.
big game, Arsenal Newcastle. I said in the last episode that this was an Arsenal win or a draw. Obviously, there's only three options, but I think this is probably the most likely result. This makes sense. They're two amazing teams. Uh, I will say Arsenal looked better. They had 66% possession and 17 total shots, and they didn't even reach double-digit shots, Newcastle. So I do think Arsenal was definitely the better team. Just a little bit unlucky, but Newcastle showed enough class to keep them at 0-0. Um, I don't think this has major implications on the rest of the season. I think if there was a loss, it would have been a lot more important, but I think this is probably the best result that either team could have hoped for.
Yeah, for sure. The real winner of this match was Manchester City. They gained 2 points on Arsenal, Newcastle dropped 2 points. So City kind of solidified themselves in second a little bit with this result, and then beating Chelsea. Um, so I think the biggest takeaway from this game is that Newcastle's defense is legit. I mean, it is a force to be reckoned with. Their defense, led by the likes of Fabian Schär and Sven Botman, is arguably, I would say, the best in the league. I don't think there's going to be too much question about that. And the thing with Eddie Howe was back in the day, he was criticized for his lack of defensive structure. And clearly he's come into this team and just solidified their defense. And the thing is it's mostly guys that they had, other than Botman, who, I mean, one of the acquisitions of the season. I mean, he's been phenomenal. And Nick Pope in goal. This team, I mean, Kieran Trippier, they already got him a couple seasons ago. They got Dan Burn last season. And Fabian Schär they already had. So they're relying on their core of guys that they had. They just have changed the structure. And then signed, as I said, one of the signings of the season in Sven Botman. So, I mean, this team is just it's defensively sound and a well-oiled machine, even improving going forward. Now, yes, Arsenal was the better team in this match, but I think Newcastle's defense is not to be slept on going forward. The only time that Newcastle's defense has conceded more than one goal this season was against Manchester City. And we know what they can do going forward. So props to Newcastle's defense and defending Arsenal off their own field.
Yeah, and one more thing I'll add to that before we go on. I think at this point last season, Newcastle were at 19th place. So they didn't change much over the season bridge. I think this is just great for them. They built upon what they had, like you said, and it's showing. So chemistry must be good. Teamwork is obviously there. Arsenal in first place. It's tough to get a win against the first place team, no matter what position you're in. So I think this is a good result for both teams.
Yeah, exactly. I think Arsenal's going to feel a little hard done by at the end of the match. They did have a couple penalty shouts. I frankly think that maybe there was a case for them, but I think either would have been harsh to call. Of course, that's all Arteta talked about after the game, but I think Newcastle were the bigger winners of this match, getting the tie. I think it benefits them a lot more than it benefits Arsenal. And another thing with Newcastle too, uh, they they don't lose. They have only lost once. And I think it was actually more than 2 goals. It was the only match was Man City. Because the only loss they have was when Fabio Carvalho scored a 98th minute winner against them for Liverpool. That was it. That is Newcastle's only loss in the Premier League this season. They have a bunch of ties, but this team is hard to beat. And I wouldn't be surprised if they take more points off of Arsenal and off of Manchester City, because yeah, they're just that difficult to break down. And especially with the way Manchester City's been playing recently, they haven't been themselves. They've been trying to get back into the groove after the World Cup, and they just haven't found their footing yet. If they do, then I think they'll beat Newcastle at home. But so far, Newcastle is one hell of a team to be reckoned with, and I think Eddie Howe is the best British coach right now. I think that he has. I mean, he's got Graham Potter beat. He's got the likes of Gerrard beat. Gerrard got sacked. Lampard's not a good coach. Um, and Scott Parker, I had a whole rant about him last week. I think Eddie Howe is legitimately the best British coach right now. Um, and I think if any British coach is going to win the Premier League, it's going to be Eddie Howe.
And he's obviously Newcastle got the big acquisition. They have a lot of money to use, but they didn't use that much money this season compared to what they could and what other teams have. So I think he's doing a fantastic job with not as big names like City have signed or Chelsea have signed. He's been doing good with what he has, and I think that's really cool in my opinion, and it's working.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously he got the likes of Botman, but Botman was 40 million, which I think Newcastle would have been able to potentially sign him anyway. Trippier was a huge acquisition, but I mean, and then Bruno Guimaraes. But other than that, these are guys that they've had. Like Miguel Almiron. I mean, we've talked about him. He took his game to a whole new level. Joelinton took his game to a whole new level. Everyone thought Joelinton was one of the worst players in the Premier League when he was playing the striker for Newcastle. He's been phenomenal playing either left wing or central midfield for this team. He's been a player completely revitalized by Eddie Howe. And I think Eddie Howe deserves all of the credit that Newcastle is getting because, yeah, he's doing it with mostly guys that Newcastle already had. So full props to Eddie Howe, and I think Newcastle are going to get Champions League football this year. I really think they are. I think it's a strong enough team to where they'll get at least fourth. I think they'll finish third. I don't see the likes of Spurs or Man U catching them. Man U potentially if they continue the form they're on, but um, Newcastle is a good team.
That can lead us into our next point about Manchester United.
Yep.
They are on a hot streak. They look completely different from before the World Cup. And I think the two biggest names on that are Rashford and Casemiro. Both of them are leading this team to victories that a few weeks ago no one would expect. Really, I think a lot of people counted them out for the most part, including myself. But I think now this is a different team, and you got to look at it differently.
Yeah, I think there's a few factors to consider with Man U. One, I think Ronaldo was baggage for them, and I'm saying this as a massive Ronaldo fan. I think it was evident that he was one that was impacting their season negatively. I think that he was probably trying to put the spotlight on himself whenever he could. So that's a factor. I think Ten Hag's ball clicks better without him. And I talked about Botman being one of the acquisitions of the season. I think the acquisition of the season is Casemiro. I don't think there's going to be too much debate about that. If he doesn't win PFA Newcomer of the Year, I don't know who would. Um, because Casemiro has been, I mean, immense. There's no other word that can really describe it. He's been fantastic um, since coming over from Madrid, and now obviously he was a known entity, but some players still have that trouble fitting into the Premier League, especially coming from La Liga in some instances. But he has come right into this Man U team, and I mean, without him, it's hard to say where they'd be.
Yeah, I think it was definitely one of the better signings this year. Um, I thought it was a weird move at first, especially because this is not like a great team. Maybe it was because of Ronaldo at the time, but he's a great leader. I think this is a presence that they definitely needed because beyond Ronaldo, it's a good amount of young players on this team, and I think Casemiro is definitely a good figure to have there. Clearly, it's working. He's working in tandem with people he may have never played before, beyond some Brazilian talent. Um,
And Varane.
this is good for them and Varane. But Rashford, I want to go to Rashford too. This guy is on fire. It's nowhere to be seen before the World Cup, and then he comes back, and then he is just on fire. He found his form again. I'm a fan of Rashford. I like this a lot, and I hope that he can continue it for his sake and United's sake. That they'll need this going forward.
Yeah, I think Rashford's been huge as well. He's been the guy that's I think put Man U on his back and just gone with it. He's been in the Man U system for a long time now, and he's always been good. But I think the big question surrounding him was could he, kind of take his game to the next level, um, and really be the guy. And I think that he's showing that he can be. Um, Now the one thing I will highlight with this Man U team is Varane actually didn't play in this match, and their starting defensive pairing was one that I think would get criticized if it was a year ago. It was Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof. But again, Man U kept a clean sheet in this match. And even the likes of Wan-Bissaka are getting back in the team. So I think that it could be also a factor of they're finally getting Ten Hag's philosophy. Um, and yeah, I think Man U have a very legitimate case at getting the fourth spot um, over the likes of Liverpool at this point. Um, so we'll see what happens there. But Man U are looking good. Now obviously they've beaten some teams that I think they should beat, like Bournemouth, most recently. But yeah, they're looking good, and I think we'll see them challenge the likes of Arsenal and even when they play City at home.
Yeah, I mean the last game against City was ridiculous, not even
Drubbing.
close. But that was a completely different team, and I think City will probably still win, but it won't be as embarrassing as it was before. They kind of figured out what they need to do. So fourth place is very realistic. I don't think much more. Maybe third, maybe, but 4-3 is probably most realistic.
Yeah, exactly. And that moves us into our final Premier League game that we're going to talk about today. Tottenham absolutely dismantled Crystal Palace in the second half of that game, and it ended 4-0.
Yeah, I don't think the game itself was like amazing, but it was very important for Tottenham to go forward. They've been struggling a little bit, and they're kind of falling behind. I think this win was really important for them as far as making top four, and maybe and what in their head is a Prem winning campaign. But that's only a thing that you use to keep you going forward. I think realistically, this is good for them also to make a case for top four. I don't think they'll make it. I know usually they always find their way up there somehow, but you got United now; they're doing really well. Liverpool could be a factor, but I don't think they are. So I think with what it is, even though it was a crappy Palace team, this is a very important win for them going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's kind of the same thing that happened last season from Spurs that we're seeing. Conte says something in the press that was like, "Oh, is he going to leave? Is he like discounting his team or something like that?" And then they immediately follow it up with a great performance. And if there's another string of performances, then I give Conte full props for that because clearly it's work. Like something has changed and it works. Um, Harry Kane looked alive in the second half. He was, I would say, the best player on the week. I mean, 2 goals and an assist. I mean, he looked absolutely lively. And I mean, it's a team that just was constant in that second half. Even Matt Doherty scored, um, and he never does. And then Heung-min Son, who's had a stinker of a season, he's finally scored when he starts. So that could be the start of something too. If they can get him hot, then Tottenham could become scary again. Um, I think the one thing that they have to figure out is how to use both Perisic and Son because I think that Perisic's game, and the commentators were saying this too, almost inhibits Son a little bit. It almost makes him a little more uh, less free to roam the pitch the way he kind of does. But I think if they can figure that out, and I think they did to an extent against Crystal Palace, that'll only benefit them going forward.
Yeah, I think they're both necessary to be in a starting lineup. Obviously, you're going to start Son. I think Perisic is incredibly underrated. I think he always has been. He had a great performance in the last World Cup. Um, and he's just always there. He always finds a way to make an impact, even if he's not a household name. I think he's super important. And this lineup, which was a little bit strange, it worked out having both of them in there. Kind of worked in tandem. Perisic had an assist. Son had a goal. I think this is probably where you want to go going forward. Of course, Palace is not the greatest experiment to use or example to use, but I think they could take from this and trying to figure out a way to use this against better teams as well.
Yeah, and one player I would like to shine the light on a little bit because his name has been more involved with loans than for Tottenham, and that guy's Brian Heel. Now this guy, he started the match, and I think a few people might have found that quite surprising, but I think he showed that he actually may have tried. He did everything he could to earn his place back in this team. He assisted Harry Kane. He was everywhere on the field. He was getting back. He was defending. He was going forward. He was on the right side. He was on the left side. He was central. Like this guy was everywhere on the field. And I think the position they played him in was right wing. But he would invert with Son. He would go back to his right, drift to the middle to throw a pass out left. He would do everything. And I think that Brian Heel has made a case for starting more matches.
I think some teams don't really follow this, but I feel like if there's a good result like this, it shouldn't change much. Again, some teams don't really follow that. They just go take it game by game, which could work, but I think after a performance like that, he should be considered for a more serious role in the team.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the likes of Brian Hill and I don't know if Kulisevsky's going to come back soon, but um, those guys are. I mean, they're going to make runs to be in this team and be that third guy with Kane and Son. And I think after seeing Tottenham play, I think Brian Hill has a great shot to say that he's earned it. Um, and I would agree with him if he did say that. And we're going to transition into one final match that we're going to talk about in Serie A, which we haven't really covered too much, but Napoli did have their 15 game win unbeaten run ended against Inter Milan. It was 1-0. Edin Dzeko scored the lone goal. But huge implications here because this Napoli team did seem kind of unstoppable, but it looks like they can lose a match after all.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna lose a game, your first game of the season, I think against Inter Milan is the least embarrassing uh result you can have. I'm not really worried for Napoli. I do think this top four is gonna change a lot, considering they're all very class. Napoli, Milan, Juventus, and Inter. Even though Inter Milan is what, 8 points behind Napoli, um, clearly they're still just as good. This is probably going to flip flop between AC Milan and Napoli as the season goes on, but I'm not super worried for Napoli. I think this is just a one off case. Um, yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah, as you said, Inter Milan is a good team. They did win the league a couple of years ago. AC obviously did win it last year. Uh, I think Napoli still has a great shot at winning. They still have a great squad, and I don't see too much inhibition for them, inhibition, whatever the word is. But they are still a good squad. They're one that I don't think has a lot to worry about. Um, the likes of Victor Osimhen have still had a great season. The guy from Georgia, I don't even. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce his name because I would definitely butcher it. But left winger, the guy that's linked with Liverpool, he's been immense this season. Uh, and then obviously you got a decent defense as well, but um, it's a team that I don't think is a lot to worry about, and I think that they'll carry on just fine. They still have a 5 point lead over AC Milan, unless it goes on a bad run. I think that Napoli is going to be fine.
Yeah, agreed. Nothing to add to that. I think this is just a one off case.
Yeah, exactly. So that transitions into our final segment of the show where we go over our hero, idiot, and goal of the week. And this week we're starting with hero of the week. So Hunter, take it away.
Yeah, I'm not going to overcomplicate this. I don't think there was any crazy singular performances this week, so I'm just going to give it to Harry Kane, uh, a team that's been struggling. He scored 2 goals, the first 2 goals in the game, so they were very important. Not that there were any crazy goals, but they were very necessary to boost the morale of a team that's been kind of lackluster.
I can't refute that at all. I mean, he was immense. I completely understand that pick. And yeah, I get that. And he's at 198 now for his total Premier League total. He's two away from 200. he's getting ever so close to Alan Shearer's record. So I really hope he's able to break that. So I mean, fair play. He had a phenomenal performance against Palace. My hero of the week, I'm going to go with Newcastle United because I'm a Manchester City fan and Newcastle took 2 points from Arsenal. So they're my heroes. They did what they had to. They stopped Arsenal. They infuriated Arteta, which always makes me happy. And yeah, I got to go with Newcastle for for my hero of the week.
Yeah, fair play. From your perspective, again, as a City fan, that's the best thing that could happen for you. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense to me. Um,
So next, let's do goal of the week first. We'll do idiot last. So goal of the week, we actually have the same one.
yeah, Daniel Podence. This was probably the best goal of the week for sure. Not that the goal itself was crazy, but what led up to it. He had the ball going into the box with several defenders on him, and he did just a nice little right to left, foot to foot, and just got past all these defenders and then slotted it in. It was really a work of art. It was beautiful. I did have someone who was close to that, but I think after watching this, this is for sure the best one.
Yeah, I think that one was also the best one. It just the level of control that you have to do that is insane, and it got Wolves an important point. So I mean, I think that yeah, I think that goal is completely warranted. Yeah, I will give a slight shout out to Mahrez on City. Not so much. I mean, his goal was a tap in, but the build up again was great. De Bruyne to Grealish to Mahrez. I mean, it was just so quick and just the one touch passing was immense, especially the pass from Grealish to set him up. But yeah, I will give a shout to that one, but I don't think it was as good as Podence. Podence definitely deserves it for this week.
Yeah, and one honorable mention I had from Brighton, the first goal from Mitoma. It was a
Mm.
little bit similar to Podence. It was just going through multiple defenders, dribbling like crazy, and then getting in the goal. It was the first goal of the game, which ended up being a 4-1 win. But it started off the scoring, and it was really nice to watch. So they're
Yeah,
both up there for me.
yeah, that was a good goal as well. I did see that one. I would still give Podence the edge, especially as well with the two teams that were involved. Everton are, very low in the table. Aston Villa has Unai Emery as their coach. Podence did it against an Unai Emery team, so I think that he definitely deserves the edge there. And finally, our idiot of the week. I'll let you go first.
Oh, I love this one. I am a professional Barcelona hater, and I'm
As
gonna
am
give
I.
it to them. Barca sucks. Now, I'm making them the idiot of the week because in the Copa del Rey, they got taken extra time by a third tier Spanish team, in Intercity. How does this happen? You concede 3 goals against a no-name team, if we're being completely honest, and you need to be taken to extra time to just score one more goal, and just by the hair on your chin get to the next round. Honestly, if I'm being honest, Intercity deserved to win more than them. So they're my idiot of the week. Barca sucks. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, that's fair. 4-3 against a sad team. I mean, Madrid didn't have a great performance either, but they were at least able to get it done in regular time. A great goal from Rodrigo. Um, and I think a shout for hero of the week is Oriol Sodavia because he Puig on Intercity because he did manage to score a hat trick against Barcelona. Um, I will give a special shout out to him. If Intercity won that match, he would have been my hero of the week for sure. I don't think there would have been either him or the team, one of the two, for knocking out Barcelona in the Copa del Rey. Um, yeah, but Barcelona did manage to scrape through in the skin of their teeth. I'm going to give my idiot of the week to two guys that I think deserve to both get blamed for losing to Man City. One is Graham Potter. We talked about him earlier. He's been on a horrific run of form. The other one's Kepa. I mean, dude, what are you doing? You got to come out for that ball. That was the cross from Grealish. It was a great pass, but he just let it go by him. And I mean, Mahrez had the easiest job in the world of just, putting it in the net. Um, Kepa not reacting to that was pathetic.
like he saw Holland and that Holland wasn't gonna get it. It's like, okay, no one's behind me. I can just let this go to bounds. Maybe it was just a lack of awareness, but regardless, you let in a goal. You didn't really put in that much effort, so I can't blame you for that pick. That was pretty bad.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you got Mendy would have swallowed that ball up. I mean, there would have been no questions asked there. Now, Kepa's been in great form for Chelsea, so I can't really knock him too much, but that one, he's going to be kicking himself for it. So, um, anyways, that will do it from us. We had a great episode today. We talked about some transfers with Daily Blind and Benoit Badiashile primarily. We talked about Greg Berhalter in the United States Soccer Federation, being in a bit of an iffy situation right now. We talked about Chelsea and their struggles, and if there's any light for them. We personally don't think there is, but um, we talked about them. We talked about some Premier League matchups, primarily Arsenal against Newcastle, Man City against Chelsea, um, as well as Tottenham against Crystal Palace, and Man United continuing their good form. We talked about a match from Serie A having implications on their table, Napoli losing their first match of the season. And then we wrapped it up with our favorite segment, I think what's becoming our idiot goal and hero of the week. As always, I'm Grayson Mortimer,
I'm Hunter Boyman.
and we will see you next time.